My chest and I'm telling too. I was lost in the rhythm of a lonely road. Say your love by my soul, now I'm coming home. When the world gets colder, I feel fire. But my feet are shaking, you lift me. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Yeah. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Late nights are heavy voices in my head. City lights blind my plane, I smile instinct. I've been dancing with my shadow, sipping on a grape. Every promise that I made, I ain't fixed it yet. I'm fragile but I move like I'm bullet too. Broken prayers in my chest and I'm telling too. I was lost in the rhythm of a lonely road. Say your love by my soul, now I'm coming home. When the world gets colder, I feel fire, but my feet are shaking.
This program is sponsored by www.rejecomandala.com. Looking for a way to earn extra income from home? This might be exactly what you've been waiting for. Simply click on the link, follow the prompting, watch the webinar, add your email address, and let's do this together. Your future self will definitely thank you. Digital business. Take a step and change your life.
Rejeko.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Yeah.
Apologies. Good morning in the UK and good evening from myself. How are you doing, ladies?
Oh, happy to be here, Rejeko. Good to see you. Happy
Good
Friday.
to see you. Yes, happy Friday. It's, I finished work, so I'm looking forward to just unwinding over the weekend. So, yes, happy Friday. Good morning, Sandra, all the way from
Good
Portugal.
morning, Wo. I'm feeling really, really good. I am back home. We're eating mommy's food, just sleeping with mommy.
Wow.
So it's like it's
Oh
really,
my
really good.
God.
Enjoying the weather. Yeah, I'm feeling really good.
Wow, you are so fortunate, really fortunate. I envy you right now, Sandra.
It feels really, really good being back home. It feels really, really good.
Beautiful. Anyway, to all our audience, it's a beautiful evening to all of you from Melbourne. My name is Rujeko. And yes, we are doing episode 5 today in our series Culture Assimilation and Integration with Bridget and Sandra. But before we go into today's topic, we're just going to introduce ourselves and we want to welcome you as well, our special guests. Please take a cup of coffee, cup of tea, or whatever refreshing drink that makes you relax. Sit down, buckle up, and yeah, we are just going to get into this discussion. Maybe I will start with the ladies to introduce themselves. We'll start with Bridget. Over to you.
Hello, and it's a good morning on a bright and beautiful, sunny British day. Good morning, everyone across the world. My name is Bridget. I am a therapist. I'm a mom of one. I run my own therapy and coaching business, and I'm very, very glad to be here. Thank you, Rejeko.
Beautiful, lovely. Sandra, over to you.
Good morning, all, or should I say good morning, world, or bon dia, because I am in Portugal today. So,
Yeah.
my name is Sandra Francisco. I am a social worker, a mother of four, granddaughter of one. Very soon I'll be a grandmother of two.
Wow,
Very
wow.
pleased to be in here today.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Myself, of course, I'm Rujeko. I come from Zimbabwe. I am a mom of two. I am a registered nurse. and growing digital business owner. And I'm also excited to be here with you tonight. So please drop a comment. Let us know where you'll be watching from because we would definitely love to hear from you. And if you're watching us from YouTube, please share, like, and subscribe. Yes, that's right. Okay. So today's topic is a bit of a very, I'd say a touchy topic. It's a big topic. It's a topic that I don't take lightly at all. I would say it's a sensitive topic. It actually, um, came about because of late we've been talking about cultural assimilation and integration, and at some point we actually touched on parenting. And when we touched on this, we realized that, there's I would say a lot of silence, especially in our culture, where we don't discuss, we don't seem to bring up this topic. But I think it'll be helpful for people to listen, to bring in their feedbacks, to participate, and this is we're touching on parental trauma. So maybe before we get into the topic, I'm just probably going to encourage our listeners today who are listening. We are going to be sharing some contact. If you feel that this topic has affected you at some point during, our discussion, we've got some numbers that you can actually call, 24-hour crisis hotline you could call and you could talk to somebody, so that'll be available for you. We've got a crisis line there in Australia, and we also have one in the United Kingdom. So yeah, so just bear in mind, we understand if it's going to be a bit of a sensitive topic. But maybe to open up, let's look at the definition. Bridget, can you help us perhaps bring some clarity to audience, those that are watching us? How would you define parental trauma?
Okay, I think, thank you, Jacob, for that. I think the first thing I'll do is really define what trauma is. And then, because trauma is just trauma, but
Mm,
it can be linked to different people experiencing it. So I'll start with that first and then come to parental trauma, if that's
mm,
okay. So,
mm,
trauma is the emotional, psychological, and physiological impact of an experience that overwhelms a person's ability to cope, process what happened, or feel safe. So that's what trauma is being defined as here. Uh,
mm,
I'll go to psychology tools for those who want to read a little bit more. If you looked up, go on to psychology tools. I give my clients all this information because it helps when someone can take themselves through the process of reading for themselves. So there is
mm,
a document there on what is on understanding PTSD,
mm,
and it says on there, traumatic experience is one which is overwhelming, threatening, frightening, or out of control.
mm,
Out of control.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
And common traumas, it also defines what common traumas are. Being in
mm,
an accident, for example, such as a road traffic accident or an accident at work. Being in a life threatening situation,
mm,
such as war, natural disaster, or a health emergency. And then also being the victim of violence. So, physical, sexual assault, uh, imprisonment, or torture, where you're tortured as well. And then witnessing violence towards another person, uh, or witnessing death. So, some traumas can be isolated. So, trauma can be an isolated event, or it can be something that's repetitive, that's ongoing. And sadly, things like domestic abuse, where that's ongoing, is a typical one. So now that we have that foundation, we can now move on to parental trauma. So with parental trauma, then we are looking at trauma that refers to, so anybody can experience trauma. So in this case, we are talking about a parent who has. experience of that. That means the parent has unresolved traumatic experiences that they carry that influence the way that they relate to or respond to or discipline or protect or even emotionally connect with their child. So
Mm,
it's important for us to understand that trauma impacts anybody. There's nobody who's immune from being impacted by trauma.
mm,
And because it affects anybody and anyone who experiences it, uh, it will bring impact to your parenting if unresolved. Though. That's the
mm,
key
mm,
thing.
mm,
If
mm.
unresolved.
Resolved. Mm,
So, in the current nature of the world, this is why a lot of our services, a lot of our institutions are encouraging trauma informed approaches.
mm,
And the reason for that is we're recognizing that this world, you will experience trauma in one form or another. If it's
mm,
not a accident, it's something,
mm,
whatever the nature of it, there's a
mm,
likelihood that we may all experience some form of trauma in some way, even if it's not direct, because trauma can
mm,
be direct or vicarious through somebody else.
mm,
And when we do, it has the same impact. Somebody close to you can be affected by trauma, and you'll also have traumatic almost experiences it as it's happened to you.
mm,
So that's important for us to understand. So yeah, that's pretty much what it means in terms of parental trauma. Is
mm,
that enough?
mm.
Did you is that
That
good?
was very good. That was very
Mm,
good. I think
mm,
looking at that definition,
mm,
so a parent who has experienced it has, they have experienced that trauma,
mm,
and perhaps it has been unresolved. It has affected them, and it'll affect the way that they are relating to their children, right? Because
absolutely.
there's that emotional disconnection. And I think that's particularly really important, especially if we zoom it down to, our culture, to let's take it to Sandra. So, Sandra, would you like to share a little bit of, your
Yeah, I
experiences?
just want before I start to share my own experience, I just wanted to
Yeah.
add to what Bridget said, and
Mm-hmm.
I would say that due to the ways that parents relate to their children, some and because it's trauma and the children do not understand, they will grow up thinking that their parent does not or do they not love them. They grow up with that resentment that my parents or my dad they don't want me, and it's very important for us parents to be aware of that trauma and understand what can I do to make it different for my children. But until they have that awareness, that
Mm,
curiosity, it's very
mm,
difficult because that's all they know is their own
mm,
reaction towards
yeah.
something that happened to them.
Mm,
And looking at my own experience and following the sessions that we've been having about assimilation, cultural assimilation and integration. So
mm,
my parents, they both migrated from Sao Tome, Prince Africa to Portugal by different times. So my dad, he came when he was an adult with 20 something years. And my mother, she married when she was a child. So she was
mm,
10. And my mother, she never returned to Africa. So it's kind of like all the memories, all the ideas, experience that she has about Africa was until at 10 years old. Whereas
mm,
my dad, he came as an adult and he was always traveling back and forth to Africa. So
mm,
for myself and my brother, growing up, it was sometimes a bit difficult because we wouldn't understand the ways that my dad will react to little
mm,
things. Whereas
mm,
my mom will sit down and talk to us, and
mm,
we will have that better understanding that, oh, we shouldn't be
mm,
doing this because of A, B, and C. With my father, he was more strict. He was more
Mm,
punishment. And when I'm saying a punishment, it's something that is going to hurt you and you don't want to do that. And
mm,
instead of you, you know that your parent loves you, but instead of
mhm,
you having that respect from your parent, you start to
mhm,
develop fear. So
mhm,
it's kind of like a me looking back now, I would say that I respected my mom more in all aspects because I could understand the things that she was explaining to me. Whereas with
mm,
my dad, as soon as we hear like dad is coming or someone will say that your dad is just down the road, you go
mm,
and sit down in a chair and you freeze because
mm,
you
mm,
know if
mm,
you misbehave, you're going to be punished. And I think this is very important for people to understand the two differences.
I really want you to really elaborate how do we associate that with parental trauma, because that is a very common scenario in most African homes. So mom is gentle, but dad is just fearful. We are fearful of our fathers. And I'm telling you, if we had a room of 100 people, I think 100 people would put their hands and say, that's how we just grew up. And to us, it's normal. It's very normal. There is nothing unusual about that. In fact, we will have people laughing, like, is that what you define as trauma? Because that is actually how it's normalized. So, with your background experience, how would you then really cap it and bring it down to, and parental
Parental
trauma?
trauma.
Yeah.
Right. Now that I am an adult and
Mm,
going through the profession and the things that have been exposed, academia and all of that, my own lived
mm,
experiences, I begin to understand and unpick my father's behavior.
mm,
Looking at his own childhood, his own background, understand his own lived experiences. That led me to understand, okay, he was reacting to all of this because of his own experiences. But we are
mm,
talking about a period where talking about trauma, it was something
mm.
that did not exist.
Yeah.
Talking about looking for experience is something,
Mm,
or not experience, looking for asking for help is something
mm,
that did not exist because this is people would say this is who I am. This is
mm,
me being your father. This is me disciplining you. But again,
mm,
they knew nothing better than that. And you, as
mm,
a child, you just normalize the behavior and you accept everything that's coming on your way.
Mm.
mm,
But like I said, now that I'm a professional, I read about trauma. I work
mm,
with people,
mm,
and it's like I have a better understanding. So going back and looking at my own father's background, I can have a much better understanding
mm,
of why he was so strict. It wasn't
mm,
out of love, but it was for him the best he could do for me at that time because he wanted
mm,
me to have a better life than he did.
mm,
For me not to experience it, to think that he experienced it. But he didn't have the communication, the language, the ability to recognize the feelings, the impact on a child.
mm, mm,
And
mm,
today,
mm,
as an adult, I would say that a lot of my childhood experiences made me the
mm,
person that I am today. I can be
mm,
someone that is very reserved. I can be
mm,
someone that I will hear and observe things, but I will not comment because you were taught you see and you don't talk. So
mm,
it's kind of like you might want to open up and show your feelings, but at times you need to think, is this the right place? Is this how
mm,
you should do it? Because this was instilled on me.
mm, mm. Okay.
Right.
So from what you've just said, you've picked on one point where there was a disconnection with your father in terms of how he recognized your emotions and how you were feeling at the time, right? For example, the fear. But to him, it was more or less how he could control, more or less how more or less how he felt at that time he was being a parent.
Yes,
Whereas with mm,
yes, but I would say that for my generation, or looking at my father's generation, that
mm,
all he knew at that time. So for
that's all
him,
he
he
knew.
was not,
Yeah,
yeah, he wasn't doing anything wrong. And
wrong.
again, how could he understand that he himself experienced a trauma? Because
Mm,
that was something that it was never talked about. It's like
mm,
whatever he experienced as a child and affected him
mm,
growing up, it's like on my father's generation, it's more like you get on and you deal with the issue, we deal with the
mm,
concerns because you are a man. So
mm,
possibly the thought is like you are a man, you need to toughen up. Man, don't cry,
mm,
and then
mm,
you need to
mm,
provide for your family. So for
mm,
my dad, for us, like raising us, it's like he did the best I could because
mm,
that was, like I said, was passed on to him as well. And
mm,
if you don't point out to someone, if you don't have the space, if you don't have the ability to recognize, if no
mm,
one ever talked about it, you
mm,
would know what trauma is. You would know the
mm.
effect of trauma, the
Yeah,
influence
that's
on a child,
true.
because it's
Mm.
something that it's not discussed.
No,
So
mm,
you can't look at your parents and say that you are guilty because of the way I turned up today, or I feel in a certain way because of what you did to me in the past. Because for them, it was like they wanted the best for us. And I would
mm,
never look at my parents with resentment because this is all
mm,
they knew.
mm,
And but
mm,
it was really good to have that balance of my mother
mm,
being someone very calm, very collective.
mm,
I always was able to go to my mom and talk to her, even though that I would fear my dad. He was there
mm,
for me. He would
mm,
give me anything that I would ask,
mm,
especially if you're bringing good grades. You are someone that you are polite. It's
mm,
like those are the type of things that your parents were asking you at that time. So
mm,
I had everything. So I was. It wasn't a case that my parents were battering me or anything like that, but there was always that balance. That mom, I can come to her. I can talk to
mm,
her. If I want to
mm,
go out with my friends, I wouldn't go to
mm,
my dad. I'll go to my
mm,
mom, and then I'll say,
mm,
"You ask dad," because I know
mm,
if I'll go to my dad and ask, he would say
mm,
no. But
mm,
that is the part that the safety. So safety for him at that point, because I am a girl, I'm supposed to
mm,
be indoors. I'm supposed to be cooking. I'm supposed to be cleaning because this is how we believe that for a girl was the best. But
mm,
whereas I will go to my mom, she will understand, okay, you are at the stage or age that you need to go out, you need to spend some time with your friends, you need to get to know the world. But for my mother, her way of thinking was different because she already um, assimilates, she integrated in the Portuguese culture. So it was different for her.
mm, 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 mm. And you're very fortunate. You had that balance of a one-sided parent who understood the importance of talking to you, explaining things. So that was very fortunate. I think you were very fortunate in that aspect. Let's let's really, without being too, what can I say? I don't want to go too deep,
Mm-hmm.
but um, I do want to be able to go deeper than where we are now. Let's talk about this side of the fearful side, when the parents have unpredictable outbursts, for example. There's a case there of, maybe there's a background of addiction, or maybe there's mental illness, or there's some form of violence, and it's coming from both sides of the parents. And like we've rightfully explained, that parental trauma perhaps this is what they inherited, this is where they came from, and this is what they knew, right? But let's talk about people who are exposed in such environment. I mean, I don't know. I want to take it to Bridget. What are your thoughts? What would you share?
You've asked a number of things there, but I think the natural progression from what Sandra has said is I think it's important to understand what the symptoms of some what sort of symptoms that someone who has had trauma can they present with, so
Mm,
that when you understand the symptoms you can understand why they develop certain coping mechanisms. What you're
mm,
describing by violence, aggression, and all that stuff is ways that people are trying to cope with their symptoms.
mm,
So the symptoms of I'm going to mention a few. There are a lot,
mhm,
but the symptoms, the common ones
mhm,
of someone who's experienced trauma are
mhm,
hyperarousal and hypervigilance. So they are very, very highly sensitive to certain things, maybe certain smells, certain behavior, certain attitudes, certain because they trigger that memory of what
mm,
happened. Yeah.
mm,
And if
mm,
you think
mm,
about a lot of our parents who came from Africa, war
mm,
torn Africa, very common. For
mm,
example, my parents, I know that they grew up, before independence. So that there was
mm,
war, there was all sorts. So there
mm.
was that trauma that they experienced. And I'm wondering if, Sandra, your dad also experienced, growing up in a war torn country. So,
There was
uh,
no war where he grew up, but he experienced a broken home.
uh,
And we are talking about, many, many, generations. So it's like in that generation, experiencing a broken home and then having someone coming in and helping your mom, or like if your mother remarried and accepting you. So it's all these things that having
Mm,
other brothers and sisters and
mm,
the privileges for one and for others. So I think about all of this because
mm,
my father experienced that.
yeah.
So
mm,
this is
Mm,
why I said like all those experiences and for him past lived
mm,
experiences made
mm,
him the person that he was, but it wasn't in a bad way that he will come to us and be very strict, saying that I want this, I want that. My expectations were very very high, very very
mm.
high. And I would say it came from a good place, but the way that the message was delivered, it created fear rather
Okay.
than
mm,
us understanding.
Uh, and it makes sense to me because unless the experiences that he saw, for your dad it was a broken home, and a broken home will have that kind of impact. That's why even with people working with children now, they recognize that divorce and all those things and coming from an unstable home are traumatic for the child. So
mm,
um, someone who's trying to survive childhood trauma may have these kind of symptoms of hyper arousal, hyper vigilant. The
mm,
idea is they're trying to protect themselves, they're trying to keep themselves safe from
mm,
that experience. So
mm,
anything that triggers the memories, whether it's someone not looking at them the right way,
mm,
anything can trigger
mm,
that. So people are very
mm,
sensitive. And the sensitivity and hypervigilance is all about self-protection, to protect
mm,
myself from that thing, because that's how they learn to survive that experience. So if you think
mm,
about someone who's been in a domestic abusive environment, they learn to be
mm,
very sensitive to the way someone behaves or someone is. They pick up oh, today we are happy, today we are not, today we are, because they're trying to protect themselves from
mm,
things, the trauma happening again and again and again. So
mm,
another symptom is re-experiencing. People actually re-experience trauma,
mm,
whether they have flashbacks. That's why I said they're very
mm,
sensitive to to whatever it is that brings back the memory. Sometimes it's a perfume. Sometimes it's the way somebody looks. Someone it's the way someone dresses. It's the way someone walks. It's the way
mm,
somebody's voice, the way they talk. Anything that brings that thing back cause you to
mm. To God.
re-experience. It's as if you're back
Mm,
there, in that
mm,
thing. And negative thoughts and negative mood are very common for people who have experienced trauma. The
mm,
whole idea is to avoid, it's because trauma impacts the way you see
mm,
yourself. It impacts the way you see the world. It impacts
mm,
the way you see others and the way that you see yourself.
mm.
uh, because and that's why you see people wonder why why don't women leave if someone's
I
abusing you, why don't you leave?
know. I know.
And the reason is because there is a belief there is a picture that person has of themselves and the
Mm,
world and others
mm.
that keeps them there.
Aish, it's
And it's
sad.
that's how powerful that picture is.
Mm,
Can start believing I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not
mm,
whatever. And because of
mm,
that, they remain.
mm.
Well, where else would I go?
Where would I
I'm
go? Who would
I'm
love me
unlovable.
again?
Yeah, I'm
Mm,
unlovable. I'm
mm.
the a big, and also don't, so yeah, I'm not, I don't want to go so deep, but
I know.
so those people who are traumatized will experience anxiety, fear, a
Yes.
persistent
Very
sense
common.
of something impending doom. Something's going to
Mm,
happen. I need to,
mm,
I need to protect. I need to,
mm,
another sign, another thing that can happen is emotional numbness or disconnection. People who have experienced trauma because of they want to protect themselves can actually numb themselves, where they are
mm,
disconnected from the people around them emotionally,
mm, mm,
where
mm,
it
mm.
seems like this person is cold, this
I
person is
know.
unavailable,
Mm, mm.
But
but
Bridget,
it's yeah.
can I just ask, sorry, like how, because we are talking about generations, so how do we expect our parents at that time to recognize everything that you are talking about now? Because those are
You,
the things that before we wouldn't talk about it.
I hear. That's why I think part of what we have to do now is educate. I'm not saying that people would know these things. This is why I feel the need to educate so that people
Mm,
can recognize that when they are seeing someone, for example, anger is a very, very common emotion that's associated with people who experience trauma. Um, I wouldn't expect that someone would know what that means because
mm,
a lot of the times we normalize people are just volatile and angry. Oh, that's
mm,
just how they are,
mm,
because we don't know what the symptoms of someone who's experienced trauma looks like. So I
mm,
think part of our responsibility is, as you said, is raising awareness. How do we
mm,
raise awareness? We make sure that we educate. We have to educate. We have to inform. We
mm,
have to make people aware that
mm,
those symptoms, even symptoms of, let me just go through them: irritability, anger, strong emotional reactions that are unexplained for no reason. Where I've sent you to buy something, you came back, you didn't buy the right thing, and it's a blow up. It's an
Yeah.
mm,
it's when the reaction does not match the event.
mm,
That one is a very, very good indicator. Very
mm.
good.
That's something's amiss here.
Can I
Yeah.
just share with you something that just brought it back to memory? So
Yeah.
there was a day that
Even me, I can
Yeah.
relate. I can
Yeah.
actually relate
yeah,
to a past experience that, oh,
yeah,
yeah,
there was a
Yeah.
it just
day that
doesn't relate.
Yeah.
yeah, I was
Mm,
asked to cook rice, and I just wanted to go and play with my friends. I think I would
mm,
be around 12, 13 years old. And I
mm,
was so upset, so upset. I was so tired that I was like, I don't want my dad to ask me again to cook any rice, to cook anything. So I remember that I went to the kitchen, I put lots of salt on the rice, I put lots of water. I don't know what kind of rice I've made. And that day I didn't even put it on a proper bowl. I just took the pot. I just wanted to make a statement and I put it on the table. And the rice was not good. I knew that. The
mm.
next thing, I just
The
had
rice.
to look because the pot just flew.
My goodness, those ones are common.
Yeah.
Before you
Yes,
know it, there's a
and
shoe on your cheek. You don't
Mm.
even know where the shoe came from.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
was so scared. That scared me so much. That was a lesson that I've never, ever, ever, I'll repeat it again. It was like, even though that I'm not going out to play, that's fine. But just do what you
Mm.
need to do, what you were asked to, and that's it. But it was
Mm.
really scared. Um,
Yeah.
like experience at that time.
Yeah. So
Mm.
thank you, and thank you, Sandra, for being so open about those
Mm.
experiences. This is the thing. Unless people are made aware of what somebody's a parent's emotional trauma can look like, because you'll see it in behaviors, you'll
Mm.
see it in attitudes, even verbally, where a parent, something like that can cause a parent, you stupid, you,
I
swearing at you,
know.
cussing you.
Mm.
The parent may
Mm.
not be physically, but they may be very verbally toxic.
Mm.
Yeah. Remember, we talked
Mm.
about one of the symptoms being negativity.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, uh,
True.
yeah. So, because they think negatively of themselves and they experience
Mm.
the world negatively, out of the fullness of the heart, the
The
mouth will
heart
speak.
speaks. Oh, sorry. Yes,
Hmm.
the mouth speaks. Mm.
Yeah, it's a very good indicator. So you will see. And how does a child won't know to
Mm.
differentiate that from me, this is me, or that is
Mm.
your stuff.
Mm.
A child doesn't have the capacity to differentiate and separate the two. They just see that you are doing this to me because you don't
Mm.
like me. And you're calling me
Yeah,
those names because
I
you don't like
know.
me. And
Mm.
this is why we have to recognize the symptoms. So we've talked
Mm.
about irritability, anger, and strong emotional reactions. Those are very common. I think they're the most common ones, because anger is a
Mm.
very well accepted way of expression for many cultures and many people.
Mm.
When you see a parent, I once watched a video where this parent was a minister, actually, was conducting a wedding.
Mm.
And in there, his child, I don't know, the child was helping the parent read. I have to find that video. And the
Mm.
child was reading and he did something, an error or something. Oh, it was an immediate one time, right there while the video was going on. And I thought to
Oh
myself,
my
so
God.
what's the message you're sending to the world
I
and to your
know.
son about what you're doing?
Hmm.
But this is the how trauma impacts people.
Mm.
You,
Mm.
unless you resolve those issues, you will,
Mm.
because when you are triggered like that, what is the switch that says switch off? You haven't
This is
got it
it.
anymore. You
Mm.
haven't learned how to do that because that thing takes
Mm.
over. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Mm.
feelings of shame, guilt, and feelings of worthlessness are common with trauma.
Mm.
Difficulty regulating emotions,
That one is very common.
Mm.
big one.
Ah.
And
Hmm.
very, very normalized,
Very
especially when it
normalized.
comes to, you see, the beauty of it is you have a child, and that child
Mm.
is very innocent. And guess what
Mm.
that child will do? As long as
Mm.
you're a parent who carries unresolved trauma, I guarantee you that your child will be an amazing trigger for you.
Oh, that's so sad.
100%.
Is it because the
Mm.
child is going to start to mirror the parent's behavior?
It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily, not
I would think
necessarily.
so. I would think so because you know how children are like sponges.
Mhm.
Whatever behavior you
The parent
present,
present.
especially at
Yeah.
an early age, this is learned behavior. This is what they've learned. This is what they see. So
Okay.
I would say it's part of it.
Later on, when the child is has reached that place, but we're talking about just, you know let's say a child of any age. Remember, when you have experienced trauma, a lot of us deal with that by shutting down certain places, this whole disconnection, this whole self-protective thing that we develop. And then you have this human being that requires you to pour out into them. They need you to give. How
Hmm,
do you give when you're shut up?
hmm,
You
Yeah, you
can't.
can't. Yeah, you can't give what you
You
don't
can't.
have.
So,
Yeah.
so that child will put a demand on you to do what you don't necessarily want to do, which is to open up and to share and to give and to interact and to,
And you
because what
don't
you
know.
want to do is you want to hide. You want to hide your wounds. You want to cover up. You want to disconnect. You want to give yourself distance so that, the only, some people start believing that only way I can be safe is, don't touch me. Don't touch
Mm,
me emotionally. That's what it is. Don't bother me. Don't touch me. Don't unsettle me. Don't. But a child will do that by the nature of just being a child.
mm,
No other reason.
mm,
Do that. They will. They
mm,
will. And so when you start seeing yourself struggling with managing your symptoms, you managing yourself, controlling yourself, whatever, it's not the child. It's the thing that is in you that's causing that. And
mm,
that's why it's so important for people to be aware
mm,
of the
mm,
of what this thing that we call trauma can look like, can
mm,
present like to you. Other things
mm.
that people also experience, we talked about intrusive memories, like I said, flashback. So imagine if some people don't sleep very well because of trauma, they
Yeah.
revisit in their dreams.
Mm,
So you're revisiting in your dreams, it's an intrusive thing because unless trauma is resolved, there is a part of our brain that you have to resolve trauma because if it
mm,
doesn't, that part of the brain will continuously be reminding you that we have
Tormenting
this
you.
issue that's
Yeah.
unresolved. We have this issue that's unresolved. And it's for you to take note. But as Sandra said, unless somebody's told you, unless somebody's made you
mm,
aware, unless you are
mm,
informed, you are thinking,
mm,
this is
mm,
something I just have to survive.
mm,
I have to survive this. I have to manage it. So you
mm,
start managing those symptoms, your anger, your fear of people coming close,
mm,
even your own kids, your inability to, and a lot of people like this will be very, very self-controlled, very,
mm,
because they have to.
they
Otherwise,
have to.
because when they lose control,
Ah, they've lost it. They know that it can't happen in public. Mm.
if it happens, hey,
It's sad. It's sad. It's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is sad. It's sad. I
mm,
mean, it
mm,
reminds me of, how we grew up. Uh,
mm.
that eye that your mother gives you.
We call it the talking. It's called the talking eye. For those who are not of African origin, it's called the talking eye.
You will
Yeah.
refuse to go home. You
Yeah.
will refuse to say, no, tonight I want to sleep here. I want to sleep with my cousins. But this is what we learned, you know,
Mm, mm,
when we are trying to control our children in public. Like we say,
mm,
you don't want to lose it, but you give them that eye.
mm,
But don't you think that is so interesting? Like in our generation, yeah, whenever our
Mm,
parents would give us a look, for instance, you are out there in public, you would know that you are doing something that you're not supposed to. But if you go and try to do that with your child in the date, they're going to
it,
ask you,
it
why are you
doesn't work.
giving me this look?
And they'll ask you back.
Is there something
It's
wrong
very
with your
true.
eyes?
It's
Why are you
very
giving me
true.
this look? So it's
uh,
kind of like
It's true.
how
yeah.
our parents managed to control us just
Mm,
by give us one look, and
mm.
now if you try with your own kids,
Uh,
they will
hmm,
question
Not
you.
gonna
So
work.
it's interesting.
yeah,
That's
it's
Mm,
that's
true. It's true.
it's
And
mm,
it's to do a lot with the environment, the times, the culture
mm,
itself. And there's something I wanted to say that was really quite interesting. I've
mm,
forgotten. But anyway,
mm.
go for it,
Okay.
Bridget.
So we've got a little bit of the symptoms now. We understand that, oh, when someone is
Mm,
presenting like this, there's probably that issue, huh? You
mm-hmm,
know, and one of the symptoms also that's very important before I move on is this idea of withdrawing and isolation.
mm,
That's very common. You have that parent who doesn't. This is what I mean when they don't bother me, leave me alone. you know, that parent who won't play with their kids, that parent who won't do normal parent and child things, because they know that interaction with their own child will it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for that parent, because they have to, it will stir up emotions, stir up. And another common thing is that a lot of people who've struggled with or experienced trauma find emotions very scary. Just experiencing them can feel very scary in itself. So
Mm,
you know that being around your kids, you're gonna feel something. So it's
mm, mm.
leave me alone. Don't bother me. Go play with your friends.
I know what I wanted to say. I wanted to
Mm,
say there is a thin line between parenting styles and this parenting trauma. Like
okay.
what you're saying, Sandra, is that it controlled everything. And now we can't do it. Again, we can also flip the coin and say parenting style,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which it's a thin line, you know. Um, but let's move on. Let's move on to that healing side. So unless, like you're saying, unless that parent gets help. Now, that is the big $1 million question. Is it possible to be able to heal that parental trauma? And at what age, at what stage is it possible? I'm throwing the question to anyone.
I would say that's a process. It's how open are you to new things? How open are you to go and seek support from a therapist, for example? How open are
Mm,
you to go and talk about the things that bother you? Because
mm,
sometimes in our culture, the issue I would say is the shame, is the
mm,
lack of understanding. If I'm going to ask for support, people are going to
mm,
see me as a
mm,
less person that I am now. If I'm going there
mm,
to expose all my concerns or my lived experiences, people will laugh at me. And that
mm,
comparison as well, like if
mm,
I'm going to what so and so is going to think about myself. So
mm.
how open are we
How
to
open
go
are
and
we?
yeah, to seek
And
professional help.
you look at the prevalent of this, I find it's quite shocking that you look at um, the prevalence where we have people who are actually who are high up in society, the stories that we are hearing, be it, this, you just look at them, you look at their background, and you look at, okay, this person is well presented, they have a white collar job, they work in government, they're a civil servant, they're somebody who holds a good position. Let's even go into it. Let's even go into people who have that religion or religious background. Maybe they're a minister, especially the prevalence in children who actually belong to pastors. It's shocking. You hear the stories that come out, and you hear the background that there is some form of parental trauma background there. So there again, it goes back to what you're saying, Sandra, when you say the shame, this is who I am, this is what I represent, but these are the can of worms in my family.
Mm,
How do we how do we really help such people?
through
Okay.
education.
Mm.
Yeah, go on, Bridget.
No, I was going to say, I think I'm before I go on to say how, I'm going to
Mm-hmm,
list some of the behaviors. I talked about symptoms, but I'm going to talk about behaviors, and there's a reason why.
mm-hmm,
So we are seeing this parent has uh, practices excessive control, very controlling. Yeah, they are
mm,
overprotective, they are
mm,
harsh, and fear-based. Their discipline is very fear-based. They
mm,
induce fear. They're
mm,
emotionally unavailable. They
mm,
have a difficulty apologizing.
mm,
They have a difficulty expressing their own emotion.
mhm,
They dismiss maybe their emotions of those around them. Especially the vulnerable
mm,
children. Nyarara, be quiet. I don't want to
mm,
hear it. That kind of thing.
mm, mm,
Sometimes they expect their children to mature very quickly, grow up very,
mm,
very quickly.
mm,
Perfectionism,
mhm,
high and career and academic expectations,
Mm.
where you have high, set the bar
mm,
very high for others.
mm, mm,
Uh, Interpreting disagreement as disrespect.
That's very common in
Very
our
common.
culture.
Yeah.
It's a behavior.
Mm, mm,
Difficulty allowing children to have boundaries. Sometimes you have parents who have been so traumatized they don't know how to establish healthy boundaries with their kids.
mm,
Parentification, where a child has to carry an adult's emotional responsibilities. That means my dad, my so and so can't manage their anger, so or they can't manage their anxiety, they can't manage whatever. I have to be responsible for helping them to do that. So a child begins to take on that responsibility.
mm,
So now we understand the behaviors that will present. How do we help? It's helping parents to understand that your behaviors are a response to something you are struggling with yourself. It's a response. And once you understand that you've learned to do this to respond to the needs that you have or the difficulties that you have. It's just learned behavior, as Sandra you mentioned before. You've learned to do that. So to manage your own difficulties.
mm,
The way we help you is understanding you don't have to live surviving and managing those things. You can actually heal from that. You can
mhm,
heal from that pain. You can heal from that trauma. You can heal from that experience.
mhm,
Like I said to you, there's a part in the brain, and I've forgotten the name,
mhm,
in the brain where when we have traumatic experiences, that part of your brain wants you to process that memory and make peace with it.
mm,
But when we don't do that, I'll give you an analogy that we use in therapy. It's like having a linen cupboard
mm,
where when everything is nicely packed in there, we can close the door nicely and there's no
mm,
problem. But
mm,
when you don't process and everything is nicely put in there, you have duvets sticking out, you have this, and every time you
mm,
pass by that door, you will
mm,
feel it.
mm, mm,
You will
mm,
feel it. So what has to
mm,
happen is, so that means that unless that is resolved, unless you make
mm,
peace with that experience,
mm,
it doesn't matter how long you carry that. People
mm,
can go 50 years.
mm,
Doesn't matter.
mhm,
You will experience the pain the every time you brush against it, every time that you are reminded of it, every time and so you will develop these behaviors to do what? To cope. Do you need to?
mm,
Do you have
mm,
to develop those behaviors to cope? You don't
mm,
have to. You can make
mm,
peace with that experience if you get the help and support that you need. Naturally, we are built in to do that.
mhm,
But there are times when people don't know how to do that. They
mm,
don't know how to process things. They don't
mm,
know how to process difficulty experiences.
mm,
So they need
mm,
help. So if
mm,
these symptoms those symptoms that I talked about are going on for more than a month,
mm,
you're going into 2 months and you're
mm,
still experiencing that. Imagine
mm.
50 years of that.
Yes.
It's now become a personality, a
Mm,
character trait that you call yourself, that's how
mm,
I am. No.
mm,
It's just something you adopted to survive a an experience, a difficulty processing something that happened to you. So what
mm,
you need is help to get somebody to help you process so that you make peace with that experience in you. And when you
mm,
make peace, just like that linen cupboard, you file everything away nicely in that memory bank of yours and you're
mm,
able to close the door. And then you can revisit the memory from a place of peace.
Mm,
from a place of understanding that happened to me. It's no longer that's who I am. No,
mm,
it
mm,
happened to me,
mm,
but
mm,
I no longer, it's no longer part of my identity. It's no longer part of
mm,
what I call myself. So then you
mm,
can learn different behaviors. You can learn different ways of relating. You can learn different ways of coping. You can learn. That's why I'm emphasizing you can learn, but you
mm,
have to
mm.
be willing to heal.
You have to be willing. It starts with that person. It starts with them. It starts with having the awareness, and it's a progress, like you're saying, Sandra. They progress to accepting and to being willing to actually find that help. And the help we're talking about is professional help, right? Uh, that's a good place to start. Somewhere where you feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
where you feel supported, where you
Mm-hmm.
feel encouraged and you're nurtured. It
Mm-hmm.
cannot take one day to process a personality that has been developed over 50 years. It takes time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the willingness that that parent or that person has.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you say to finish off? I'm looking at the time. So the parents that are willing to get help, that are now aware that okay, maybe there's these kind of traits that I have. What then would you say about the children themselves? Do you ever recommend that it's a good idea for the parent and the child together to get help at some stage, at some point during that process? What would you say?
Well, in a normal, I mean, I'll speak from a therapy point of view.
Mm,
By the time people come to me, they've recognized, Sandra, you probably deal with people early on, where's the parent and the child? So I'll let
Yeah.
you answer that part, but I'll speak from a therapist's point of view. So by the time a parent comes to me, they've recognized, they've accepted, and they've made a choice to get help for themselves. There
mm,
are times where parent and child are getting therapy. There is what we call family therapy, where
mm,
it addresses families that have been traumatized or experienced, the impact of family parental trauma. So I'm aware of that, but I
mm,
tend the on in my part I work with individually, and I've worked with a lot of parents who themselves have had parental trauma. So as much as it's going to be important that both the child and the parent get support, I would emphasize that the parent getting their own issues addressed. In other words, taking responsibility and getting help for themselves to heal for themselves is very important. Um, yeah, in order for things to move forward, you're gonna have to get that help for yourself. So I would recommend trauma informed therapy, trauma informed coaching. There is such a thing, and there's various different types of therapy in there. EMDR, you name it, CBT. There are various. So if one form doesn't work, you can all counseling. They're all different, variations of support or help that people can get. But yeah, on my end, I work individually with people, and I highly recommend that.
mm, mm,
Sandra, I'll let you address
Okay. So,
the others.
yeah, on my line of work, okay, as a social worker, is I will work with the child and the parents. I work with families, and it's really difficult when you have a parent that experience something, and until they realize that
Mm,
okay, this is what I've experienced, and this is how is my own experience is affecting my parenting. But what I would say, I normally use like visual tools. I do something like a timeline just because it's very difficult just to confront the person and ask sometimes direct questions. So when do you take the time to draw with them to understand, tell me what happened at this, from this day to this day, and then they'll just start to tell you different things, and you take one by one and you start to unpick. That'll give them time to process, time to understand. And then when you go to the child and you say, okay, so this is what happened to you as a parent. So now let's see all of this that was happening to you, how did it impact on your child? And then when they
Mm,
start to think about, okay, this is how possible my child reacted, or I could have done this better. But it's a process, like I said before.
mm,
And
mm,
there is support there. And as a social worker, we always refer to family therapies. As Bridget said, there's different
mm,
therapies, different supports that you can get, but you need to be able to be open to receive. Because if you're not open to receive, there are all this support out there, but you're not going to get it because you don't recognize that something needs to be changed. So
mm,
until you are at that point that you recognize that I need to make a change, this is affecting me, this is affecting my parenting, this is impacting on my child, I need to find a way to talk about it and get the support, you're not going to be able to
mm,
make
mm,
and sustain the change. You will feel
mm,
better afterwards because it's not about pointing me as a professional pointing my finger at you or saying that you are a bad parent, because we all experience lives in different ways, but it's how are you going to get that support and better yourself? Do you have that desire? That will be the question
mm,
that I'll start with it. I'll leave you with this question.
mm,
As a parent,
mm,
do you recognize the importance of saying I am sorry to your child? Because this is
mm,
something that we don't do. Because we are not
mm,
used to. Because we are the parents and we are always right. But the reality
Mm.
is not. It's like you as
mm,
a parent just think how your own experiences is affecting your child or
Yeah.
impacting on your child. Yeah, and that would
wow.
be
I like that approach,
Mm.
Sandra. I think this topic is quite overwhelming, especially towards the end there, when you're giving pointers to people of, um, the options that they may have to get help. And I think a good place that if you're listening and if you're watching and if you feel that this program has triggered or affected you in any way, a good place to start is the numbers on the screen there. If you're audience watching us from the United Kingdom, we have an NHS number that you could call. And we know that there's definitely confidentiality, it's safe, and you're very much protected. We also have on the header there, if you're an audience and you're watching us from Australia, 24-hour support line as well that you could call. It's a good place, good point to start from. And you guys touched on that topic of, we mentioned it earlier on therapy, especially in our culture. We're talking about the Black community. It's a topic on its own that one day we would really, really love to come and talk about, because that's what we're all about. We're all about raising awareness and having people to reflect, to think, if you're affected with any of these topics, and seeing the way forward. How can you come out? How can you find help? How can you help a friend? How can you help your partner, your brother, your sister? So we will be back again with that topic, perhaps not immediately, because it's there's a lot to think about there. But we'll be back again next fortnight with another topic. And I really, really want to give a special thanks to Bridget and to Sandra for today. Thank you so much, ladies. I think you've done a fantastic job tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, until we meet again next fortnight, if you have any questions, send them through. We'll would love to actually help in any way that we can. But until we come again, we'll see you next fortnight. From me, Bridget and Sandra,
bye.
it's a good
Bye bye
evening
for
or
now.
good morning.
Bye.